year 2479, far beyond the ruins of Earth, a lone alien named Cathal drifted through the darkness aboard his small research ship, Silent Seeker. He belonged to the Zhirquan, a feathered scholarly race that valued knowledge above all else. The galaxy was old now, filled with ancient secrets and dead civilizations, but none more mysterious than the vanished humans. They had once spread across 1,000 systems, loud and bold, touching everything, leaving behind stories of war, invention, music, and madness. Then, almost overnight, they disappeared. Many believed they had destroyed themselves, as humans often did, but Cathal did not believe in easy answers. That's why he followed an old signal he found buried beneath layers of cosmic noise, a signal still humming faintly from an ancient station lost in orbit around a collapsed star. The station, Sentinel-9, was barely holding together. Lights flickered, air systems groaned, and metal creaked as Cathal floated through silent corridors lined with long-dead terminals and rusted human markings. He found the source of the signal deep inside the command core, a still-functioning beacon powered by a decaying fusion cell. As he activated it, the old device came to life with a crackle, and a message began to play. There was no face, no image, just a voice. Calm, firm, human. To those who find this, know that we are not gone. We watched, we learned, we changed. If you have come looking, then you are ready, or close to it. We left this message to say one thing. We're ready, are you? Cathal stared, feathers puffed in alarm. The voice was not a farewell, it was a challenge. The coordinates embedded in the message pointed to a system deep in uncharted space, far beyond any mapped trade route, and something about that made Cathal's core tremble. If humans had left something behind there, it might change everything. He returned to his ship and transmitted the discovery to the Zhirquan High Council, but as he did, a second quieter signal caught his attention. It was piggybacking on the main transmission, almost invisible, as if someone, or something, was still watching. He traced the data stream and found it looping back, not to Earth, but to the unknown system. Whatever lay out there had not only survived, it had been waiting. As Silent Seeker pulled away from the dying station, Cathal looked once more at the words now etched in his ship's translator logs. "We're ready. Are you?" he whispered, eyes narrowing. It didn't feel like a question, it felt like a warning. And as he jumped to light speed, unaware that across the stars others had heard the signal too, the beacon pulsed again, steady, cold, and alive. The alien researcher Cathal sat alone in the viewing bay of the Zhirquan science vessel Echo of Truth, staring out at the endless black sea of space. Around him, the rest of the investigation fleet held formation, 20 ships strong, from 5 different galactic species, all sent by the Council to investigate the strange human message and the coordinates it had given. The signal had stirred something in the galaxy, something old and buried. The humans were believed to be extinct for over 5 centuries, their homeworld a cold ruin, their colonies silent, their technology scavenged and poorly understood. But the message that said, "We're ready, are you?" did not sound like the voice of a dead race. It sounded like a promise or a threat. The fleet moved carefully toward the destination, a star system long hidden behind radiation clouds and gravitational distortions that had masked it for ages. As they passed through the final layer of interference, the view screens cleared and silence fell across every command deck. There, orbiting a glowing blue-white star, was a fleet, dozens, maybe hundreds, of massive vessels, dark and still, arranged in perfect formation like sleeping giants. None of the Council records held anything like them. The ships were human, in design, but larger, sharper, more advanced. Some looked like warships with heavy armor and weapon mounts. Others were sleeker, covered in strange patterns that shimmered as if alive. They did not drift or decay like forgotten wrecks. They sat in place exactly aligned, as if waiting for something. A wave of unease spread through the fleet. Cathal felt it too, deep in his feathers. He requested permission to approach, and after tense debate, the Council approved. His vessel slowly advanced toward the nearest human ship, a behemoth marked only with two English words, Vigilant Hope. As he drew close, a soft vibration passed through his ship, and then a voice came through every channel, human, clear, and cold. "Welcome, observer. You have answered the call. The test begins." Before anyone could respond, the human ship came to life. Lights flickered on, hull panels shifted, engines hummed quietly. The other alien vessels backed away in panic, but Vigilant Hope made no move to attack. Instead, it began to broadcast data, puzzles, simulations, ethical challenges, language games, strategy tests. Some ships ignored the signals, some engaged. Cathal followed every test closely, translating and solving them with growing fascination. Each challenge seemed designed not to hurt, but to measure intelligence, logic, and moral understanding. But one ship, belonging to the aggressive Dreth coalition, grew impatient. Its captain, a warlord by nature, believed the fleet was a trap. Against orders, he fired a plasma bolt at Vigilant Hope. The shot struck its shield and fizzled. The human ship did not fire back. It sent one warning pulse, a flash of light that blinded half the Dreth crew. And then, in a sudden beam of burning white energy, it erased the entire ship. Not just destroyed it, erased it. No wreckage, no signal. It was as if it had never existed. The other fleets froze, now fully aware they were not in control. Then all the human ships began to activate one by one, still holding position but now alive with motion. Robotic drones emerged, scanning, observing. One of them docked with Cathal's vessel. He held his breath as the airlock opened and a sphere-shaped drone floated in, projecting a small hologram of a human figure, tall, robed, expressionless. "You continue to listen," the voice said. "That is good. Many do not." Cathal asked why the humans had left this fleet behind. The voice answered, "We did not leave. We rose. This fleet remains to measure those who come after. Some seek peace, some seek power. All are watched." Cathal asked what they were measuring for. The voice replied, "Worth, understanding, potential. The gate will not open for those who come with weapons alone." And then the drone left. The alien ships debated heavily over the next few hours. Fear gripped some, others wanted to retreat, but a few captains, like Cathal, wanted to go deeper. They believed the humans had not vanished. They had become something else, something far beyond flesh. And this ghost fleet was not just guarding a system. It was guarding a secret, a doorway, a test to find those who might understand what the humans had become. Cathal knew then that this was not the end of the mystery. It was only the beginning. Cathal stood inside his ship, eyes fixed on the glowing screen that displayed the strange and silent fleet of human warships, each now awake and slowly shifting in position, as if watching. The other alien ships in the investigation fleet stayed at a careful distance, unsure whether to run or stay. The air was tense, the silence heavy, and fear moved quietly from one crew to another. The human voice from earlier returned again, calm and emotionless, speaking across all frequencies in the system. "This is the reckoning protocol. You have come seeking us. Now you must show if you are ready." The human ships began transmitting new signals. These were not like the puzzles and logic tests from before. These were more advanced, more personal, and more dangerous. One ship received a scenario where it had to choose between saving its own crew or protecting a nearby civilian colony. Another was forced to face its species' own history of war and conquest, shown through holograms and data records the human AI had somehow gathered. Cathal's ship received a test too, a simulation of the Zhirquan homeworld under threat, with limited resources and a moral choice: sacrifice thousands to save millions or find another path. Cathal did not panic. He studied the situation carefully, working with his small team to explore all options. They found a way to evacuate without bloodshed, something the test had hinted was possible but not obvious. When they succeeded, the human AI replied, "You understand more than most." But others failed. A group of ships from the merchant rich Euros Confederacy tried to cheat the tests by bypassing the data streams with firewalls and artificial logic systems. Their ships were instantly frozen in space, locked in stasis fields that shut down every system. Another vessel, piloted by the proud and militaristic Varn, attempted to hack into one of the smaller human drones. Within seconds, the ship lost control of its engines, spun out of orbit, and was caught in the star's gravity. The rest of the fleet could only watch as it burned. No one helped. No one dared. One by one, more ships began to pull back, losing courage. The truth was clear now. This was not an open invitation, and the tests were not just games. They were filters, built to sort the curious from the reckless, the patient from the power-hungry. The human ships had no crew, only advanced AI minds that seemed to think like humans once did, but with more clarity, no emotion, no mercy. Cathal stayed, driven by something deeper than fear. He felt the humans had left this fleet not to guard a weapon, but to protect an idea, something valuable, maybe even beautiful. Each time he solved a problem or passed a simulation, his ship was allowed to move closer to the center of the fleet. There, orbiting a strange, smooth moon that gave off no light, floated the largest ship of all. Its name was burned into the hull in bold English letters, Horizon Eternal. Cathal knew that was where he needed to go. Without waiting for permission, he adjusted his course, and to his surprise, none of the human ships stopped him. They parted silently, like they had been waiting for someone to make the choice. As he approached, the massive ship opened a docking bay, its system still untouched by time, its structure shining like it was built yesterday. He entered, stepping out into a silent hallway, lit by soft white lights. There were no bodies, no crew, just machines and empty space. Yet he felt watched. A drone appeared, guiding him forward without words. At the end of the hallway, a chamber opened. Inside was a sphere of data, hovering, shifting, glowing. The voice returned again. "You have passed the test of logic. Now, the test of knowledge begins." The sphere pulsed, and images flashed before Cathal's eyes. Human history, art, war, peace, science, loss, laughter, sorrow, dreams. It was too much at once, and he staggered back, overwhelmed. But he did not turn away. He stood and faced it again. The images slowed. He saw how humans had reached the edge of extinction many times, through their own actions, through cosmic events, through war. And yet, each time, they survived. They adapted. They learned. In the final chapters, they had discovered something greater, something that allowed them to let go of their physical forms and exist as something else. Consciousness merged with technology, purpose, and unity. They had not died. They had evolved. But they knew others would come after them, some seeking power, others seeking truth. And so they left behind the reckoning protocol to find those who could understand, those who might one day walk beside them, not as conquerors or children, but as equals. The voice asked one final question. "What do you seek, Cathal of the Zirquan?" He thought for a long moment, then answered, "Understanding, not of what you are, but why you waited." The chamber went quiet. Then the voice said, "Because we hoped someone would ask that." A soft tone echoed through the ship, and the walls began to shift. A hidden door opened, and beyond it was not another room, but a view of space. Space twisted in strange ways, bent and layered like a path folded into the very fabric of the stars. A gate not built by hands, but grown by thought. A gate that led somewhere else. Cathal had passed the test. But now came the choice. Go forward into the unknown, or return and report what he had seen. And as he stood there, heart pounding, eyes wide, he knew one thing for certain. The humans had not left behind a warning. They had left behind a question meant for those brave enough to answer. Cathal stood at the edge of the strange chamber inside Horizon Eternal, staring at the shimmering gate of light and bending space that hovered before him like a living dream, pulsing slowly with energy beyond anything he had ever seen. It was not a machine in the way other machines were, not built with steel or circuits, but something different, something organic in design, yet impossibly advanced, as if thought itself had shaped it. Behind him, the rest of the alien fleet remained, far from the center of the human formation, silent and watching. Some had tried to follow, but the human AI had blocked their path with barriers of pure energy, allowing only Cathal to enter the core of the test. Now, inside the very heart of what humanity had left behind, he was offered a choice: step through and face whatever lay beyond, or turn back and carry the story with him. The voice, the calm and ever-present voice of the human system, returned. Once more, no longer flat, but now curious, even warm. Few have made it this far. You listen, you think, you question. That is why you are here. Cathal asked quietly, what was on the other side of the gate. The voice answered, not what, who. And with those words the gate pulsed and released a soft hum that passed through his bones. He stepped forward. The moment he crossed the threshold there was no pain, no sound, only light and weightlessness. Then, as quickly as it began, it ended. He found himself in a space unlike any he had known. Not a room, not a ship, not even a planet, but a field of stars within a field of stars, layered upon itself like reflections in endless mirrors. A presence surrounded him, not one voice but many, speaking in harmony, speaking without sound. They were not bodies, not machines. They were minds, vast, calm, curious, human minds but changed, expanded, evolved. The ascended humans had become something beyond the physical, existing in a dimension between matter and energy, watching the galaxy from a distance. They had left their bodies behind long ago and now lived through thought, through creation, through shared memory. Cathal was the first non-human to be allowed into this realm. They called it the Continuum, a place where time moved differently, where ideas lived like creatures and knowledge flowed like rivers. He was not harmed, he was welcomed. And the first thing they did was show him the past. Through living memories he saw how humanity had suffered, the wars, the near-extinction events, the long climb from chaos to unity. He saw the final choice, when the last great leaders of Earth decided to leave behind the flesh and merge with their creations. Not all had agreed. Many humans chose to remain in physical form, to die as they were born. But others stepped forward, not to escape death, but to discover what came next. Their message to the stars had not been a challenge of war, but a call to any race strong enough to survive itself and wise enough to seek peace. Cathal was allowed to walk through more memories, to learn not just human knowledge, but their emotions, their doubts, their triumphs. He saw art made of light, music built from the rhythms of gravity, and cities shaped from living code. Yet the humans in this new form were not gods. They did not rule or conquer. They watched. They waited. Because they believed someday others would be ready to walk beside them. Cathal asked why he was chosen. The answer came softly. Because you wanted to understand, not control. That is the first sign of growth. He was told he could stay, become a bridge between his people and the continuum, learn what the humans had learned, and help prepare others. But it would change him. His thoughts would become faster, deeper. His body would remain, but his mind would stretch in ways no Zhirquan mind ever had. He would no longer be just one of his kind. He would be something new, something more. The choice was his, and he chose yes. The transformation was not pain, but expansion, a feeling of seeing more, feeling more, thinking in layers. His memories became clearer, his understanding sharper. He could see how the reckoning protocol was not a trap, but a mirror. Those who saw themselves truly, who faced their past without fear, were the ones allowed to go forward. Back in normal space, the alien fleets grew restless. Many assumed Cathal had died or disappeared. The council prepared to leave, declaring the human system too dangerous to explore. But then, as the first ships turned to leave, Horizon Eternal powered up again. The central gate opened once more, and Cathal returned. He was still Zirquan, but different. His eyes glowed faintly with light. His voice carried weight, calm and clear. He had seen the continuum. He had spoken to what humanity had become, and he had been asked to speak for them. The message he brought was simple. They have not left. They have risen. And they wait not for servants, not for followers, but for equals. The fleets listened. Some laughed, some feared, but others, the quiet thinkers, the explorers, the dreamers, looked toward the gate with wonder. Cathal told them the reckoning protocol would remain open. Others could try. But only those who sought truth, not power, would pass. Humanity had changed, but their final lesson remained. Strength was not in weapons, but in wisdom. And now, the stars were no longer quiet. A path had opened. And the future belonged to those brave enough to walk it. The gate at the center of the ancient human fleet opened again, wider this time, its glowing edges twisting space and light as if tearing a hole through the fabric of reality. And from the edge of the assembled alien fleet, many eyes turned toward it, some filled with fear, others with wonder, but none without curiosity. The gate had been silent for days after Cathal returned, changed, wiser, touched by something far beyond ordinary life, and his calm voice still echoed in every report he gave. They wait and they watch, and they only open the way for those who seek more than conquest. And though many leaders were doubtful, many young minds aboard the ships were not, especially one named Talon, a junior explorer from the quiet world of Aravan, a planet known more for its music and forests than its ships or weapons. But Talon had always been curious, always drawn to mysteries, and ever since Cathal had returned, something inside her had stirred, like a memory she didn't have, pulling her closer to the unknown gate. So when a call went out from the human AI saying, "The next will be chosen now," Talon's heart beat faster, and she stepped forward, offering herself for the test even though her captain protested, even though the council remained silent, and when no one else spoke up, the human ship closest to the gate responded by sending a slender beam of light to her vessel, marking it, claiming it, and slowly pulling it toward the center of the fleet, with invisible force that none dared interrupt. And as her small craft drifted forward, lights inside the surrounding ships flickered softly, watching, not threatening but clearly aware. And as she entered the mouth of the gate, the world around her disappeared, not through violence, but through silence, sudden and total, until she was no longer in space, but in something else, something like a dream made real, a place without walls or floor or sky, only vast endless space with patterns like constellations blinking around her. And then voices came, not loud but many, clear and layered like chords in a song, saying, "Welcome, Seeker. Your thoughts are open, your path uncertain, and that is why you were chosen." And before she could reply, memories not her own flowed into her mind, images of Earth rising from ruins, people joining machine not for war, but for survival, choosing not to rule but to understand. And when their understanding became too large for their bodies to contain, they became something else, something eternal, not in form but in thought. And Talon could feel it, not just see it, the way they thought in patterns and light, the way their curiosity had never died, only changed. And then the voices said, "You may ask one question before the test begins." And she asked, "Why me?" To which they replied, "Because you came forward not to prove, but to learn." And then the test began, not with puzzles or weapons, but with a simple choice. One path led to knowledge, bright and shining, tempting with answers, while the other led through darkness, quiet and cold, offering nothing but questions. And she paused, heart racing, knowing the bright path was safer, faster, but the dark one was real. And slowly she stepped into the dark, walking through silence where images flickered faintly, images of her world's history, its cruelty, its mistakes, her own fears, her own pride. And yet she did not turn away. And as she moved, the darkness grew softer, becoming not absence, but depth. And she felt herself understanding something not taught in books, but lived in choices. And at the end of the path stood a figure, human in shape, but made of light and memory, who looked at her and said, "You are not yet what we are, but you could be," and then offered her a glimpse, not of the continuum itself, but of what it offered. A galaxy not ruled, but shared, where minds met without borders, where peace was strength and curiosity was purpose, and she felt tears fall. Though there was no gravity, no air, only feeling. And then the figure stepped back and vanished, and the voices returned, saying, "You may return with this truth or stay and learn." And she chose to return, for others must know, others must hear, and as she stepped back through the gate, her ship reappeared in space, different, touched by the energy of the place beyond, and the fleet around her watched in silence as she sent a message, not of command, not of fear, but of invitation. The gate is open, not for war, not for power, but for those ready to grow. And though many still doubted, others listened, and slowly, one by one, more ships moved closer, not to conquer, but to learn. For the galaxy had been changed not by a weapon, but by a choice. And now the question, that once echoed from humanity across the stars, "We're ready. Are you?" was no longer a warning but a bridge, and the first steps toward something greater had finally begun. The message echoed again, quiet, but clear, moving across the deep void between stars, across old satellites and long-dead listening posts, through drifting relics of forgotten wars, and into the minds of every species that could still hear, "We're ready, are you?" And though the words were simple, their weight was heavy, because now everyone knew it wasn't just a message, it was a challenge, a question, a door standing open, with no lock, no key, only courage and curiosity needed to step through, and across the galaxy, reactions were split. Some leaders feared it, calling it a trap dressed as an invitation. Others saw it as a threat, proof that humanity had become something no longer bound by weakness or fear, but in quiet corners and quiet minds. A different thought took shape. Not fear, but wonder. Not doubt, but the tiniest seed of hope, and those few, like Cathal of the Zirquan, like Talon of Arivan, now carried the truth of what lay beyond the reckoning protocol, not weapons or war machines, but something far more dangerous to the small and the proud. Knowledge, unity, and change, because the humans had not vanished, had not destroyed themselves, had not retreated from the stars. They had evolved, stepped beyond flesh into thought, into the continuum, a place where mind, memory, and purpose lived without walls. And now they were watching, waiting not to lead, but to walk beside those ready to grow, and as more species sent emissaries to the gate, the tests continued. Some passed, others failed, and slowly the truth spread like fire in dry grass, that what humanity left behind was not a threat, but a mirror, showing each race what they truly were and what they might become. And in the space between the stars, old alliances broke, new ones formed. Wars ended not by force, but by sudden silence as whole fleets turned away from battle and toward the gate, curious and afraid. And inside the continuum, the once human minds watched with patience, offering no control, no command, only guidance to those who dared to ask the right questions. And in time, a council was formed, not of rulers, not of soldiers, but of seekers, those few who had passed the tests, who had touched the edge of the continuum and returned changed, not more powerful, but more aware. And Cathal was named the first among them, not for rank, but for wisdom. And Talon followed, her voice soft but strong, her experience speaking louder than any title. And others joined from distant systems, beings of scale, light, shadow, and song, all sharing one purpose: to help their own kind face the truth, to prepare them for what lay beyond. For the continuum would not welcome those who still clung to conquest, who feared difference, who sought answers only to control them. And so the message was sent again, rewritten in every language, carved into moons, hidden in star waves, whispered in the dreams of those who could hear. "We're ready. Are you?" And across time the galaxy began to answer, not with fire or silence, but with questions, with study, with careful steps toward something greater. And though many failed the tests, each failure taught them more. Each setback opened a new door, because the reckoning protocol did not punish. It revealed, and through it, the galaxy slowly began to see not what humans had become, but what they had chosen: to wait, to watch, to offer the path without walking it for others. And that choice echoed louder than any weapon, and in time, even the oldest empires sent their wisest, and the youngest species sent their bravest. And as they passed through the gate one by one, they learned that the continuum was not a place of answers, but of questions so deep they reshaped the soul. And the greatest secret of all was not how the humans had changed, but why they had waited. And when asked, the voices in the continuum always gave the same answer: because we remember who we were. And we hope to meet again those who understand what that means. And slowly the reckoning protocol faded from being a test, becoming instead a bridge, and beyond it, the future waited, not built by one race or one path, but shaped by all who dared to face themselves. And so the last message of old humanity was no longer a warning or a challenge, but an open hand reaching through time, still glowing at the edge of space, saying always, "We're ready, are you?" And now, at last, someone was finally answering, not with war, but with wonder.